evening and welcome to another edition of Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. I'm your host, Tyler Clemens. We have an interview this evening with Tammy Nabiwanek, who is running for Assembly here in New York. She'll be taking over for Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush if she's elected. She has been Assemblyman Blankenbush's chief of staff for a while now and is running to fill his seat. So we'll have Tammy in here on the show right after the break here on Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. Welcome back to Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. And for the first time on camera, but she's been in the building a couple times, Tammy Nabiwanek running for Assembly and going to be replacing Ken Blankenbush. But you know the halls of Albany better than most already.
I have some definite advantage in that area, and the good, the bad. Yeah.
Of course. So Tammy, introduce yourself. You're running for Assembly, and this is your first time running for a state office, and it looks like you're knocking it out of the park already.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been with Assemblyman Blankenbush for the last, I think, 3 years as his chief of staff, and in public service for probably 30, which will age me there. But I was not in, public service in regards to politics. So did a lot of not-for-profit work, working with schools, working with law enforcement. But, when you spend 3 years, and I did that job because I liked Ken. I liked what he represented and how he did it and the constituent work. And when you get in that and you really see the difference that needs to be made, that's when I made a decision that when he eventually retired, that I would want to run.
And so that time has come, right? Ken has announced that he's not going to be seeking re-election. And now that you're stepping in, you're going to be running. I said you're knocking it out of the park simply because I've been checking your Facebook updates and you're getting endorsement after endorsement.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is coming pretty easy to you, but talk about kind of the support that you've seen on the campaign trail so far.
Well, and I think when you do the work ahead of time, you're spending 80% of your time building relationships when you're doing your job. I think that the endorsements will come because you're a hard worker. And I think that you work really hard to establish those relationships. And, I'm very humbled. I've had a lot of support. But I hope a lot of that's because I've helped other people and helped people get elected and done the work. Petition season, we're in the middle of it right now. So I think probably 2015 was when I, first started helping. My best friend was running for district attorney, and I started helping with her campaign. So it may seem like there's a lot of coming endorsements and it's easy, but hopefully it's because I've been doing the work for many, many years.
Yeah, and people obviously are believing in your mission. You talked about petition season, so we're right in the middle of that right now. What's been the feedback that you've gotten from constituents as you're going door to door and getting their signature, and how are they feeling about your campaign or maybe things going on in Albany? What's the conversations are like?
Yeah, it's good. I think people. The best thing you can do is meet people face to face, and the best that our constituents can do is invite us in and talk about what their issues are. If we are really, listening to our constituents, we know what they are. We know affordability is certainly one. It's one that Republicans have been saying for years now that is just this year at an all-time. We're at risk for a lot of things right now with our families, and it's caused by just bad policies or policies that are being pushed too quickly.
Right.
But that's the number one. It's affordability. It's common sense. They want. We're different. We're upstate New York. We're northern New York. I grew up here. We just want common sense. We want our values to be respected. We're hunters. We want to be able to actually go out and hunt, and we want to be able to have gas stoves, frankly.
Simply put,
we're in the
right?
winter here. We don't want, electric buses because we know they're not going to work in rural northern New York.
Right.
So that's what you hear when you walk in the doors. And if you live here, you know that already.
Right. And so you have experience just in Albany at this point. You've been Ken's chief of staff for a while now. So I mean, you see that you're a new candidate or potentially becoming a first-time assemblywoman, but you have the experience that this is going to be a pretty easy transition if you're elected. Do you want to talk about the importance of experience in Albany, seeing as the conference right now is losing some
Constituents can.
ranking officials,
Yeah.
going into next year?
Yeah, I think our Republican conference is losing for the Assembly. I think we have 10 seats out of the 47. Obviously, Ken is one of them. I think the challenge is, I have worked for Ken. My job is to work for the member, be the chief of staff, and give an all-over viewpoint that's 10,000 feet above and advise on policy and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's the member. The member makes the decision on everything. I think the challenge is coming from that chief of staff role and becoming the member is bringing your own personal energy in there, bringing your own personal viewpoints and how you were raised and what may make a difference as well. And I'm super excited about that. I'm excited to bring my own team in and to begin to bring some enthusiasm to the job, but to also continue what I've been mentored with.
Yeah, so your district is also one that's very, I'll say it's kind of confusing because a lot of districts they're kind of boxy, right? They have these certain
Yeah.
counties. Yours is very like long, like north south
It's the
ways.
best district.
It's a great district, but you have a lot of different, a lot of different counties with different priorities. And that's going to be tough to manage for anyone new coming in, just trying to learn about this stuff. But you have been, like you said,
Sure.
fostering those relationships and understanding their priorities. So you want to talk about the district? I know you said it's the best district, and it really is. There's some really nice people here. But how challenging is that kind of? You have some different priorities for people that are in Oneida County, for people that are in the St. Lawrence County. That's tough to manage.
Well, it is and it isn't. So I think the number one thing is making sure that you're in the district everywhere in the district. You have to be seen. You're representing those constituents. Albany is 60-some days out of 365. So, you really need to be out with your constituents, those that agree with you and those who don't. You need to see every viewpoint and know how everybody is dealing with the laws that we create in Albany. So it's the best district because there's 49 towns. All the way Fraser Falls in St. Lawrence County. I think there's 19 towns in St. Lawrence County. We have 5 here, in Jefferson County. We have all of Lewis County, and then we have 8 in Oneida County. None of them are cities, they're all towns. And they're all very, very similar in their values, in what they appreciate, and their priorities. So that's why it's the best district.
I love that. We'll talk a little bit more about the policy that's going on in Albany after the break. But one thing I want to touch on here in this initial part is that we see a lot of complaints, right? But we don't see a lot of solutions to those complaints. So that's where you
Yeah.
differ because your time being in the conference, you're starting to see like what the conference is providing as far as solutions to these problems. Is there anything you want to touch on there? That with you talked about, hey, we don't have these, or they're trying to push out the gas stoves, but the conference has some solutions to these problems.
We do. We have legislative packages, that are covering the different pieces. For energy, we have 4 bills right now that are very, very solid bills to slow the process down of that CLCPA and try to make it more common sense. We are outdoor people here.
Yes.
I mean, we live in the outdoors. We want to preserve our outdoors. We just don't want to kill our families in the process. And so what we're trying to do is just make some common sense choices, that can slow it down for our constituents, can let us catch up with the grid and the infrastructure, and not do things that just in the long run are going to make life up here a lot harder.
Sure.
So, that's an example. And then, of course, affordability. I mean, I think we might have 15 bills out right now, in the minority conference that are very well thought out, that are trying to approach those. And it's a variety of things to make things more reasonable, to maybe give some tax cuts, to help with childcare, all of those things.
We'll talk a little bit more about those affordability bills and all sorts of things going on in Albany after the break. Tammy, thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Tammy's going to be back after the break, but we're going to take a break here on Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. And we're back here in Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. Tammy sticking around for us. She was before the break talking about her campaign. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in Albany and what we need to do to kind of combat it. Tammy is obviously Ken Blankenbush's chief of staff. So the policy in and out here. And I think a lot of folks up here are really concerned about affordability, and that's a key word, I guess, that a lot of politicians are throwing out, that they're trying to fight for affordability. But what we're seeing in Albany right now is the pretty much opposite of affordability, and that's on the Democrat side. On the Republican side, what are some of the policies or the priorities that you're pushing to try to make things more affordable for residents up here in the North Country?
Well, I think a lot of it is slowing down the mandates that Albany is putting. You have a lot of downstate representatives, Democrats, who are really trying to push through policies very, very aggressively. We don't have the infrastructure for them. Of course, that is going to come to our consumers to have to pay. And we're seeing that actually on our national grid bills or, our power bills. I think, we have been screaming, the minority conference, especially us up here in Northern New York and the Mohawk Valley, we've been screaming, this is a problem. Like, we can see our rates going up. We're worried. The school buses, we don't want electric school buses. We are concerned about that. And I think, all of that is nice, but if you don't offer solutions, all you're doing is complaining. So we are offering solutions. We have these great packages, fighting for New York, and trying to get back to some common sense living here. I think you've got to have solutions when you complain, and I encourage anybody to take a look. They're readily available online. But also, I think something else that is really important is, that we're getting out there with our constituents and we're hearing the gas stoves, please don't take our gas stoves, we're different up here. We live a different life, and I think we have to be able to respect our life that we have up here and our values and our priorities and those things that we live. The snow right now, it's a different world. I think we have to be able to respect that, and I think you have to have a really solid voice in Albany who can articulate that, not just scream, hey, everything's wrong, but we need solutions, and please be respectful of those people who live in the rest of the state. So a lot of slowing down, the climate policies right now. Like we've talked about, we are very, very, I'm very pro-outdoor. I love part of my district is in the Adirondacks. I certainly want to preserve that. But we can't do it at the cost of our families being able to live in New York State. And we can't do it at the cost of people leaving the state because they can't afford it. We have to slow it down and put the infrastructure in. Make some common sense decisions.
One thing I pulled out of there is it's not like you're asking for a full repeal of all these climate, bills and stuff. It seems to me that the Republican Conference is acknowledging the need to kind of shift towards cleaner energy or greener energy, but not as quick as what they're going now, right? So it just seems like there's got to be a compromise somewhere. It looks like that's what the Republican Conference is asking for, is like, just slow it down. We're willing to work with you a little bit, but you got to slow it down a little bit.
Well, and I think also I look at it because I have a lot of friends and a lot of relatives who are not Republicans, and they have the same concerns. When you're in rural upstate New York, Republican, Democrat, we're a little bit more similar than I think most of the state when you separate downstate and upstate. And so I think it's not, we're not against it. We want our outdoors to be preserved. We need to do it where we're not kicking the can down first. So there's waivers out there, but the timeline is still where it started. That's not going to work. All you're doing is going to make a real high pressure couple of years to try to put these through. I worry that it's an election year for a governor, and are we just going to kick this can down for a year?
Right.
I hope that doesn't happen. NYSERDA came out. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, yes.
That was where everybody went, we've been saying it. NYSERDA came out and actually put numbers to what all of these climate, control changes are going to have for our constituents, and it's frightening.
Yeah.
We can't afford that, and we're going to lose more families, and more families are going to struggle. So we're working to try to have a solution that's going to be a little bit more long term, that our constituents, both in the Republican areas and the Democrats that they can live with.
Yeah, for anyone who didn't see that memo, is from NYSERDA saying that with all these policies from the CLCPA, if they were to be enacted, your bills would be raised, or your expenses would be raised upwards of over $4,000, which
Annually, yeah.
annually, yes,
Yeah.
annually. So I mean, that's like what, 10% of some people's
Another
incomes,
$2 in gas
and that's
on
just
top.
the
Yeah.
the increase. That's not the total cost. So incredible. That was really a bombshell, I thought.
It was, and NYSERDA is a state agency. It's
Yes,
real, or a
yes.
commission. So it's really, really important to know that that's not somebody that we had as Republicans come in and take a look at it. I mean, that's established by the majority.
Right.
It's
And
so
they weren't the first, right? I mean,
they're not
DEC
the
has also
first.
raised a
Yes.
bunch of concerns. They're obviously a state commission.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think NIPA has also mentioned something about their affordability.
NIPA has come out
They've
and
been a
spoke
little
about
quieter about it,
Exactly.
but that one memo from Doreen Harris was like, whoa, like that must have
It
been
is.
a real wake up call for Albany, that they have to change their messaging a little bit. One thing I wanted to talk about is, I think there's a relatability issue with representatives in Albany with their constituents, right? I think constituents up here saw, and not to punch the governor, but saw the video of her shoveling snow, and then her press conference where she talked about, if the power goes out, everyone get your family and the dogs together and cuddle or whatever. I think there's a relatability issue, but I don't see that on the minority conference side, on the Republican conference side. So, can you talk about how, like, maybe you've seen it on the campaign trail or whatnot, but there's just a relatability issue where it's like these are the folks making the laws, they don't apply to them.
Well, I think authenticity.
Right.
We all do, and we know who we can relate to. And I think when you see a video, and that was a very unfortunate video. I mean, I'm not sure who the PR group was.
I've had that conversation
recommended
so many times. Who
I-
thought that was a good idea?
I mean, luckily my husband shovels a lot at our house, the snow blows, but I'll tell you, when I'm shoveling, those were not the tools and,
Right.
and how I look
The
when
little
I'm
bit of
shoveling.
sw on the end of the shovel.
Yeah,
Right? That's
yeah.
not how we do it up
It's
here.
an ugly look when I'm shoveling.
And
Yeah.
she's from Buffalo, though, so she knows what
Yeah.
lake effect is and all that. But like, that was
Yeah.
still so out of touch, right? I think out of touch is a common, I guess, sentiment, from constituents up here, is that the Albany is out of touch.
Well, and I think, anybody who's in a campaign, they probably have a good idea of what, is going for them and what's not going for them. And I think that there is this piece for her that's not relatable, and they're trying to address that, but perhaps the relatability is not about how to, look like you're shoveling, because we know the governor's not shoveling, let's be honest. But maybe it's more about you're out of touch because you're pushing policies that are just crazy.
Right.
And get in touch with us and come to our homes, like walk through and see what we're dealing with, have a meal and understand that we're cooking with gas, and don't take that away from us, or ride a school bus.
Right.
Like, please, like, did you ever ride a school bus? And if you haven't, or you did, it's up here is different. To talk to anyone, they're like, well, you could place bets. This could be a fundraiser. Like, place bets on how far and how long that school bus is going to get in the middle of our winter on a rural route. Not very far.
Not very far.
Yeah.
We've got a few minutes here. Is there anything else you want to touch on as far as your campaign or policy in Albany? Anything you wanted to say to the constituents here? Whatever, anything we might have missed?
No, I'm incredibly hands-on. So I'm generally out in the community, and I'm out there now, getting petitions and whatnot. And shortly, it won't be getting petitions; it'll be door knocking. And please feel free to ask me any question at that point. I do have a website and a Facebook page, and the priorities up. I'm not going to bore anybody with those. It's pretty common, North Country values and priorities.
Sure.
I do come from a background that's public safety. My parents, were Department of Corrections, and so, you will see a lot of concentration on keeping our prisons safe, keeping our prisons in general. So, that's definitely going to be something that I hope to bring to the table, is that first view as a family member.
Sure.
We do have Governor Correctional that is in
Yes.
our district. Yeah.
Of course. Tammy Neviwanek running for Assembly. You should right in petition season. There'll be plenty of opportunities to meet her and to talk priorities. Thank you so much for coming onto the
My
show. I
pleasure.
know this won't be
Anytime.
the last time,
That's
so
good.
we'll look
That's
forward
good.
to having you back.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. And welcome back to Hometown Connections with NBC Watertown. It is almost time to wrap up this week's episode, but before we go, I do want to send a quick shout out to Buffalo Wild Wings, who hosted our Bracket Challenge event earlier this week. As everyone knows, the tournament is going on right now, and if you signed up for a chance to win, you can go to nbcwatertown.com and you can see if you were picked to be associated with a team, and every time that team wins, you will win a new prize here with NBC Watertown. All the prizes are on the website as well. As everyone knows, the tournament is going on right now. You may have already been eliminated, or you may have already won some pretty cool prizes. So once again, go to nbcwatertown.com and you can follow the progress throughout the tournament. Also on that web page as well. So you'll get to see all the cool prizes that are up for grabs and who else is winning and who's been eliminated as we speak. As we said, the tournament is going on, so another thing to be watching out for this weekend. See if you've won some cool prizes or not. Until then, we're going to wrap up the show here on Hometown Connections. I'll be back next week for another edition of the show. Until then, more NBC programming is coming up right here on this channel.